Welcome to Stock Shots. Today is Saturday, April 18th, 2009. We're so pleased to have back as our guest today Mr. Charles Payne of Wall Street Strategies and Fox Business News. Charles is one of the best on Wall Street today, and we were so pleased that he took time out of his busy schedule to be with us here on Stock Shots. Charles has a great book out called Be Smart, Act Fast, Get Rich, Your Game Plan for Getting It Right in the Stock Market. You can visit his website at www.wstreet.com. Listen in now as I interview Mr. Charles Payne.
Charles, thanks so much for being back with us on Stock Shots.
Yeah, it's been too long.
Charles, we've seen the markets rally lately. Is this simply a bear market rally, or are we headed much higher?
I think it's a bear market rally. It's been one heck of a bear market rally, but it just seems like there's an amazing disconnect from reality to what we've seen in the stock market, particularly the ability of the market over the last 6 weeks to totally ignore the overwhelming amount of bad news and to find the silver lining in everything.
Well, we seem to really find that silver lining with the banks this week, and you know, we're going now from this financial crisis to a lot of people saying that maybe the crisis was overblown. Was the crisis overblown, or are we still going to see a lot of downside with these banks?
You know, that's the great question, because I'm not 100% sure. I know to a certain degree, if I'm in the White House, I'm going to overblow this thing, because when it comes around, I want to look like a hero. And I do believe in the business cycle. I do believe that we're going to come out of it at some point, no matter what, because I think that's the way capitalism works. Of course, coming out of it sooner rather than later is always the key point. So, to maybe a certain extent, certainly it's overblown. I think even my lifetime, I've lived through worse periods. I think the 70s and early 80s were a lot worse. Having said that, some of the, you know, it's sort of disheartening for the average person, that person on Main Street, to sit back and watch as Wells Fargo says it's made $3 billion, as Goldman Sachs gloats on their conference call that they have no exposure to the consumer. You know, it's tough when you see all these things. J.P. Morgan talking about a scarlet letter by taking TARP money, and yet these firms took billions of dollars of taxpayer money, and it's the taxpayer who's not seeing any light at the end of the tunnel right now.
That's what's so difficult, and what's scary about that is I think it plays right into the class warfare that we're kind of seeing at the government level with the higher taxation and really the vilification of success.
It's amazing. It really, really is, and it's getting worse, and it's going to get worse. And you know, there's no doubt that Wall Street executives have been the perfect foil for this thing. A couple of weeks ago, Lloyd Blankfein was talking, and if you remember that time, Code Red, the Crazy Friends group, came up on stage. But what I found interesting was that he more or less said, "Yeah, you know what? We're greedy. We're this, we're that. We might have to look back at things." He wasn't volunteering to give any money back, so he makes a real convenient target. But I think what the White House is looking at, and they've said it many times, lumping someone who started their own business, maybe they own 2 auto body shops, the body shops together make $500,000 a year, and they're lumped in there with the Lloyd Blankfeins of the world. That's what I'm really scared about, the fact that somehow the notion is to make up the difference between the rich and the poor is to saw the ladder of success in half, limiting the upside for everybody.
Well, and doesn't really, it really does trickle down, doesn't it? And let's use you as an example. You're a successful entrepreneur and businessman. Go to your website. I see how many different analysts you have. You're a job creator. So if we stifle and really hammer the people at the top, doesn't that trickle down to all those people that are employed by businesses such as yours?
Absolutely, without a doubt. You know, you hit it right on the head. I started my business out of a 1-bedroom apartment, just me, hardly, you know, no money, a lot of dreams, a lot of hopes, and you know, a lot of people have fed their families, paid their mortgages, and even putting their kids through college. So I'm very, very proud of that, and it makes me so angry when anyone even tries to suggest that I'm greedy or that I'm selfish. These are the buzzwords that we use throughout the campaign and that are echoed all the time right now. And then, of course, we had the tax tea parties that were 100% ignored by the White House while they've gone around the world. Obama saying he'll listen to Putin, saying he'll listen to Ahmadinejad, taking this book from Hugo Chavez that denigrates America and won't listen to people in our own country who have a legitimate gripe.
That's really scary to me. And when I saw him with Chavez, it was extremely scary, because one of the things that I think we've kind of forgotten about is where we were with oil prices this time last year. And it looks like since the election, we've been willing to just admit that all political risk is out of the equation for oil prices, and I don't think that's so. Do you?
Absolutely not. And to your point, I think we're taking the lesser case scenario and everything. If you look at the defense budget, the cuts there, it's as if, maybe China will never attack Taiwan, or maybe North Korea will never launch a nuclear missile, or maybe Iran won't develop nuclear weapons. So it's the assumptions that we're making across the board are absolutely amazing. But, I think these assumptions had to be made, because you look at the deficit that we're in. By the way, the deficit from the White House, $1.75 trillion, is way too low, way too low. But if they were to take into account all the other threats economically and from a security point of view, wait till you see where that deficit is probably going to go.
Because at some point, when we have to admit that these political risk and security risk are still out there, we have to ramp that spending back up.
Absolutely. And I just don't see where we're not really frightening anyone. I understand the idea of passing around olive branches, and, to a certain degree, hey, it might work. But I've just been extremely frustrated. I think the worst place in the world to go apologize for American arrogance is on French soil. And if you're going to do it, go to Normandy at the grave sites of American soldiers. But there's a lot of things that people should be worried about with the basic foundation of our country. And we don't want to do is have this economic crisis, no matter how deep it really is, make us turn away from what made it successful in the first place.
That's absolutely right. And we have got to protect capitalism at all costs. Let me ask you this. We've been exploring the inflation-deflation debate on our show, and we've had a wide variety of opinions from guests, but the deflation camp seems to argue that all of this government printing is simply going in to rebuild the balance sheets of the bank and therefore will not cause inflation. Do you buy into that whatsoever?
No. And what's nutty about it, if that's the only goal, why are we doing it? Why are we taking taxpayer money? Why do we have to rebuild the Goldman Sachs' balance sheet? Why do we have to rebuild the balance sheet of Wells Fargo? What the heck is going on? We've got almost 9,000 banks in this country who did it the right way. So many of them. You haven't heard of them, but there's 5 branches, 20 branches. They're small, but they held out. They didn't take the big money. They didn't make the huge salaries. Their stock price didn't go to $200 a share. They did it right, and now they're being penalized. In the meantime, these banks are already saying, listen, we're making a ton of money, and most folks out there don't know what the heck, how their next, where the job is going to be a month from now, or they're going to have their home 6 months from now.
Well, and we are saddling our children, and that's what concerns me so much, is what will my kids be faced with the tax burden that they have to bear, and what impact is that going to have on our economy?
Let's face it, I think it's going to even happen before our kids. What tax burden are you and I going to be faced with?
For the rest of this great interview, visit our website, www.stockshotz.tv. That's www.stockshotz.tv. Thank you for listening.